Cherished memories are a wonderful thing to revisit, especially after the loss of a loved one. It certainly helps in the healing process. But how many times have you said to yourself, I wish I knew where to find that photo of Grandma, or I wish I could remember the story behind a certain family event? In today's Straight Talk with the Funeral Director, our friends at Edwards Funeral Service are here with a special guest that can help keep those memories intact generations to come. Beth Buxton joins me once again from Edwards Funeral Services, along with Heather McRae, the owner of Memories in Print. And it's nice to have both of you here.
Thank you.
Beth, I know you talk to families all the time at that end of life, and they're trying to do their best to honor and remember their loved one. And this is a great way to do it, isn't it?
It really is. I really love what Heather does because it allows families to share those stories and memories, leaving them behind for generations to come.
And it also, I think, helps the family in the grieving process. Would you say in all those families that you worked with the same thing?
I really do think it does. I meet with families, and during arrangement conference, they're just like, I wish Mom was here to tell us that story. I can't remember every detail about it. So I just think it's so important. Help people grieve, help them share, and really have a goodbye.
So Heather, how does this work? These are examples of your memory books, but they're more than just pictures inside. They really are truly memories. What are they all about?
They're just all about the stories that make up a family. For example, this red book right here is the story of Jane and Earl, and it spans their life all the way from what they remember about their own parents all the way to their memories of raising their 9 children. And it's all sorts of stories. It's not just the story of when each child was born, but of when their oldest son climbed on the roof and pregnant Jane had to go bring her toddler son off the roof when she's scared of heights. And it's all of those stories that you tell over and over dinner tables, all put together into one place for everyone to enjoy.
Because at some point, those are going to get lost, right?
Exactly.
You can't just tell them one right after another. How do you get a family together to sit down and remember all these things for you then, Heather?
Mostly what I do is I interview just a couple.
Okay.
So for, once again, for this red book, Jane and Earl, I went to their home and I brought a recorder and a scanner and I said, you have no idea who I am, let's talk about your life. But it ends up being a good time, and we laugh a lot, and they just tell story after story, and I interview them. I have a journalism background, so we just talk about everything they can think of. I take the notes home, I go over them, and I bring them back the next time, and then I may be there for 3 or 4 hours talking to them again and laughing and leaving much later than I thought, just because they're enjoying remembering these things.
And nobody sits down sometimes and asks them, probably, what can you share? What are some fun memories?
Exactly. You don't interact that way with your parents mostly. In every project, I always learn something that their kids don't. For example, in one book, I learned that the mother had an engagement before her marriage. And none of her children knew that.
That's probably that's not the advertised, right?
But it was so funny, and the kids got a real kick out of it, just that they learned one more thing about their mother, and I love being able to give stuff like that to the families, you know?
Beth, when people come and they want a service, does something like this help them, give them other ideas too on how they can have a service that ties in with a book like this?
It really does, and we always talk to our families about what Heather does, especially when they're coming in to plan their funeral in advance. I always mention her because if you're doing that, you're obviously thinking about what's going to happen next, and you want to think about how can I leave that legacy behind? How can I leave those stories and memories to share? So I always talk about her.
You know, and as Heather, it's interesting you say you have a journalism background, because initially, until I saw your books, I thought that we were talking about a picture book. And it's so much more than that, but it takes really somebody that, like you, to sit down and gather that information and then put it in a book form that everybody will understand.
Yeah, it's the photos really add a lot to it, but most of my time is not spent in interviews. It's in front of a computer screen trying to go through all the things we talked about and put it into a story. What I want to create, and what I do most of the time I hope to succeed at, is create something that they can sit down and read. You know, genealogists may create a family tree, but you can't read a family tree.
That's right. How great this is going to be for generations to come. And I know you have an offer for our daytime viewers, which is great if they'd like to get started.
I do. For the next 5 people who contact me and put down a deposit, I'm going to take 10% off of whatever project of any size that they come to me with. So.
Great idea. Great memory sharing. I love that. Nice to meet you, Heather. And Beth, that's a great idea that you offer for your folks too. Thanks for bringing Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.